Considered to be one of the greatest gaming stories ever told, the Red Dead Redemption franchise left players with memories that were full of both joy and heartbreak. We spent countless hours as both John Marston and Arthur Morgan and watched each one grow over time. As both characters met their unfortunate ends, gamers felt a great sadness that was difficult to overcome. But the question in today's video is, which passing affected players more? Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Philby Gaming. If you enjoy the following, you all know what to do, and if you're new here and aren't subscribed to the channel already, please consider doing so. As warned prior, there will be major spoilers ahead for both titles in the Red Dead Redemption series, so if you're yet to finish either game, you may want to do that before watching the following. On a side note, with the first being released in 2010 and the second being in 2018, features such as gameplay and visuals will not be taken into consideration. This is strictly about the story aspect of each title. Lastly, if you guys wish to get in touch, you can do so by finding me over on Instagram, which you'll find linked in the video description. And without further delay, let's get into today's content. Let's begin with the premise of each title. Red Dead Redemption 2 tells the story of Arthur Morgan, a lead gunman in the Van der Linde gang in Western America during the latter end of the 19th century. Beginning with the aftermath of the failed Blackwater ferry heist, the gang spend the remainder of the title performing robberies and evading the law, specifically the Pinkerton Detective Agency. As Arthur performs his duties for the gang, he unfortunately contracts tuberculosis, numbering his days. He spends the remainder of what time he has left battling with himself and his choices as he watches the gang around him that he once loved fall apart. Red Dead Redemption 1 is set some years later during the earlier portion of the 20th century. Players step into the boots of John Marston, former member of the Van der Linde gang who's attempting to reform his life for both himself, his wife and his son. Antagonist Edgar Ross, formerly of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, tracks down John at his home of Beecher's Hope and kidnaps his wife and child. All of this with the intention of sending John to capture or kill the surviving members of Dutch's gang. Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 have opposite premises, but there is a common denominator. Both tell a story of loyalty, whether it be Arthur to the Van der Linde gang or John to his family. Both John and Arthur have equally strong strengths and weaknesses, primarily their loyalty. Arthur's loyalty to Dutch and the gang blinded him most of the time. He would continue on with the gang even after his mentor was becoming unhinged for the majority of the story, following his every instruction to the letter. Although he later realised what he was doing was wrong and attempted to become a better man, it was too little too late for him. John struggled with loyalty in the beginning, leaving the Van der Linde gang for around a year after his son was born. Later, after rejoining, he too followed Dutch blindly, just as Arthur did. Even after he was left to rot in prison, he still helped with the final train heist instead of taking his family and leaving. Because of this, the Bureau of Investigation was able to track him down after he finally left the gang, eventually causing its demise. The player can relate to both characters in many ways. John's loyalty to his family is undeniable, as he travels far and wide, tracking down his former gang members in a bid to save his kidnapped wife and child. Most men will go to the ends of the earth to do the same. After the gang left him during the final train mission in Red Dead Redemption 2, he became the man he needed to be, building his home at Beecher's Hope in an attempt to provide a better life for his family, becoming a better person. Arthur led an outlaw life, but believed that they were more than just criminals. He had a code, something of which people can relate to. He had his heart broken a few times, just as we all have, whether it be the loss of his child and their mother or the failed relationship with Mary Gillis. Both characters, throughout much of their early life, felt lost before finally finding purpose. The stories of both games are incredibly powerful. Red Dead Redemption 1 came to light after Rockstar Games had produced for years less serious titles such as Grand Theft Auto, State of Emergency and Midnight Club. Not only did it provide a different setting to these titles, but also became much more narrative driven, a first for the company. Following the success of this, Rockstar knew they were onto something big. thus began working on a prequel for the game, Red Dead Redemption 2. RDR2 was definitely intended to be a more powerful story than the original, and the depths it went to were incredible, telling the original story of the Van der Linde gang before their demise, answering many questions that players had after playing Red Dead Redemption 1. RDR1 became the premise for the creation of the prequel. The deaths of each man were truly shocking. Arthur's death, although we knew it was coming, was written very well. Instead of making it a sudden demise, they stretched it out over time, making the player love the character as we watched him slowly fade away from the strong character he was before. The final battle with Micah had players believing that they would get justice, but instead watched as Arthur was defeated and took his last breath atop a mountain as the sun rose. It was a powerful scene that had many overcome with emotion. John's death took gamers by absolute surprise. After taking care of the remaining gang members, including his former mentor, Dutch van der Linde, he was left alone by the authorities to be with his family, as was promised. The player even got to perform a few missions with them, but Edgar Ross and his bureau went back on their deal and put down the final remaining member of the gang. I remember this vividly. As John emerged from the barn, I was looking at all the gunmen, wondering how the hell I was going to get out of this. It was a powerful death that nobody expected. As far as which death impacted players the most, it's difficult to say. Although both affected deeply, John's was so sudden and unexpected. As with Arthur's, we knew it was coming as there was no mention of him in the first Red Dead Redemption, set some years after the prequel. I connected with both characters strongly, maybe more with Arthur, but that was possibly down to the depth of the character in the game. We have to take into consideration that the release dates between the two titles were 8 years apart, and Red Dead 1 was Rockstar's first real attempt at creating an in-depth story and character, something of which they took inspiration from when creating Red Dead Redemption 2. Some gamers may not have experienced the original Red Dead Redemption due to the release being so long before. Both were very powerful characters in their own right, and the death of both men was felt by all. So which one affected you the most if you played both titles to the end? Let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed what you saw today, be sure to hit that like button, and if you're new here and haven't subscribed to the channel already, please consider doing so. If you wish to get in touch, you can find the channel's Instagram page in the video description below, along with any other social medias you may need. Thank you guys for watching. You've been listening to Phil of Philby Gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.